All right, now since we're at the camp here and just finished cleaning the the motor home, and it's looking pretty good. Got all the most stuff out of here, and that feels good. I was pretty worried about that, but anyways, what I thought I'd do is just talk a little bit about my campsite here, explain how I came to own this property, and yeah, because I feel like I've got quite a few videos concerning my campsite here, and none of them really explaining the you know the history behind it. So that's what I'm going to try and explain here. I'm going to do my best. My life is really a um, a plethora of disastrous failures, one after the other. So it's really hard for me to think back and put things in chronological order. Sorry, it's cold in the motorhome here. My face is frozen, so you may hear the little space heater going there. Anyhow, so I was about maybe 6 years ago. I was playing a lot of gigs. I was doing pretty good with a good friend of mine. We were playing all kinds of gigs. We got really popular pretty quickly, and business was good. So I was saving money, and at the time, well, actually not saving too much money because the money that I was making was going straight back out the door. At the time, I was living with my parents, and the deal was that I could move back home because I wanted to go back to school for engineering. So, but I mean, it was tough, like, being a musician and making enough money to pay rent and bills and all that, and pay for university, which, man, expensive, unnecessarily expensive. But that's a whole other story, and I'm going to make a video about that as well. But because actually that's U Ottawa Scotty, that is the whole reason for the title of this channel, was this portion of my life where I was going to school at University of Ottawa. Anyways, I was going to school. I was living back home, moved back home with my parents, kind of save money so I can go to school, and at the same time I was just playing so many gigs, and yeah, it was not working out at all. I wasn't doing well in school. My marks were terrible. I was just having a really hard time. It was like 3 hours minimum of commuting per day from my parents' house in Barrhaven to University of Ottawa, and the classes were horrible. They were really hard. I found them really hard, and I found them really shitty. Like, I had terrible professors and TAs, and it sucked. I did not enjoy the school, so I didn't do very well. Wasted a lot of time and a lot of money there, and because of that, I think things were kind of starting to break down at my parents' house. It was the atmosphere started getting a little tense, and I've had sort of a tumultuous life of various disasters. So yeah, it was just time to kind of get out of there. Anyways, my buddy that I was playing music with, he was saving up money to buy a house. He wasn't in school or anything. He was saving his money to buy a house. So, and he wanted to buy a house out in the country with like an acreage. With I'd say minimum 2 acres. And he sort of said to me, he says, well, look, when I buy my house, what you can do is you can, since I know, he knew I lived in vans before and RVs and all that kind of stuff. Good friend of mine. He said, well, as soon as I buy my house here, you can buy an RV and live on, on my land. And I agreed to pay him a very reasonable amount of rent to live on his land. And I had a little power meter that I plugged into the side of his house that would just say how much power I used, and I would pay him for the electricity every month, and it was good. That worked out great, and that situation there is the whole reason for that my 1989 Vanguard Class A motorhome came from that scenario. That is the motorhome that I bought to put there. And of course, if you research through my channel, I'll put a link in the description. When I first bought that motorhome, actually was quite a disaster because I couldn't live in it right away. It was had some serious problems, which, as you know, I have since fixed. But it took me 2 summers to kind of get the motorhome in good enough condition that I could live in it, and that's what I did. And by that time, the timing was perfect, I think, because at that time I think things were getting pretty tense there. But anyway, so I lived in that for, I'd say, about 8 months. It was good. My own place, you know, I was still playing a lot of gigs and everything like that. So that was a good setup. The only problem was, of course, my buddy had a serious girlfriend at the time, and they owned the house together. So I think that his girlfriend was kind of like getting a little tired of me being on the property. I mean, I didn't really cause any problems or anything like that, but I don't know, she started getting a little weird about it. So, and I think that kind of put a lot of pressure on my buddy, and so that sort of made me feel pretty uncomfortable. So I kind of didn't really, I started to kind of feel like a little unwelcome there. So I just really wanted at that point in my life, I'd been, you know, renting and living in compromising conditions for my whole life. Like, I never really had a place to myself where it was, you know, even when I was renting, I always had roommates, and I had some really great roommates and a lot of fun over the years. But you know, I was over the whole roommate thing, and you know, I'm older, you know. Also, it wasn't the roommates that were really the problem. It was always the landlords that were the problem, you know. There's so many problems with just, you know, plumbing, electrical, and it's the same thing every time, you know, or like washing machine and dryer, you know, your landlord said, oh, you'll fix it, but they never do. And then I would just end up fixing it, but I never got paid for any of that work. So it was just like, I was over the whole landlord thing. I wanted my own place. You know, I already had this motorhome that, you know, I figured at the time I could tow it to wherever. I wanted my own piece of land. So I was, yeah, but the only thing is that land is expensive. Land is not cheap. So, and I didn't have really very much money at the time. So, anyways, I don't know what it was. I left my motorhome from my buddy's property one night, and I was really feeling down and out, like just yeah, you know, I was just feeling fed up with everything and everything like that. So I went to this, I remember going to this new housing development and just sitting in my car for like an hour. It was probably about an hour. And just trying to think like what I was going to do and stuff. And anyways, I just pulled out my phone and I went on Kijiji. And I don't know how this it probably just fate or something. I'm just searching through the classified ads. This was back in the day when people still used Kijiji, and searching land for sale. And man, I just came across this ad, and it was, I don't even think it was in the real estate section, it was in the other category or something, and I just came across this thing. It wasn't really listed properly, and it said, I'll never forget, it said camp for cheap, and it had a little picture of this campsite, this piece of property, this land here, and there was a trailer and the cabin that you've seen in my videos, or shed or whatever, and it had a price on it, and it was low, like it was yeah, it was not a high price. It was, you know, the equivalent of maybe three months, three and a half months of work for me, and I would have enough money to buy this piece of land with the little trailer and the shed on it there. So, anyways, so yeah, I called the I remember emailing this guy, and I called him, and I managed to get a hold of this guy the day after. And I just said, look, you know, what's going on? He was a French guy, super French. I said, what's going on with your land here? You know, you know, is it, you know, is that the price for like the land and the trailer? And I said, yeah, you know. I said, well, why so? Well, I guess he was he gotten sick or something. So I said, okay, I'll go up and look at it. So, and I had never been up this way before, but anyway, so I drive up here, and I get to this beautiful little property, and it was perfect, just awesome, just couldn't believe it. So I said, yeah, I'm 100% gonna buy this, and I went to his house that day, paid him a deposit, and then, you know, the rest is history, really. And yeah, that's how I came to own this land. I had, from the time that I opened my phone and looked on Kijiji to the time I had paid for the land was probably 24 hours. So it happened really quickly, and it was, I mean, I wasn't expecting to find anything really. But yeah, I found something, and I bought it within 24 hours, and then we of course had to wait for the lawyer to do the notary, I should say, to finalize the sale and all that. But it was a really strange thing, because, you know, I went from feeling really down and out, and from the moment of seeing that ad I got really excited, and then within 24 hours I was owning my first piece of property, and the rest is history. I started coming up here and camping, and spending a lot of time up here, and I didn't tell anybody that I had actually bought this piece of land. I kept it a secret for, I'd say, almost 6 months, and never told anybody where I was going. Never, you know, really nobody knew where I was or where I was going for about 6 months. And, you know, that was back in the day. I never had Facebook or YouTube or nothing like that back then. I was very much, I mean, if I could have not had a cell phone, I would have. Well, of course, I needed a cell phone to get a hold of people. But yeah, for a whole period of 6 months, I came up here, and nobody knew where I was going. Nobody knew where I was, and it was pretty awesome. It was just, it really saved me. It really gave me something to look forward to. You know, this is far from my hometown. It was an easily an hour and a half, 2 hours to get up here. It was a trek every time to get up here, and it wasn't easy. You know, I had to bring water and all that kind of stuff. But it gave me something to look forward to, and it was a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment that, you know, I finally had. You know, it's a small piece of land. It was something that was my own, that I owned, that nobody could tell me. Nobody could tell me what to do. Nobody could get mad at me. Nobody can, you know, be weird with me. This is my spot. This is my property, and I owned it outright. There was no mortgage. There's nothing like that. You know, it was 100% mine, and it was when I was here, camping here, there's a sense of tranquility and calmness, and that I had never felt before. Just the stresses of life, the stresses of you know, being at the end of somebody else's rope all the time. You know, when you're renting and you are always on the line, you are always at the end of somebody's rope. You're never your own man. So it was the first time in my life where, yeah, I was my own man, and had my own property. And I had my van at the time. Now, of course, my motorhome, I actually couldn't bring that up here because it was still in, you know, it wasn't safetied, or, you know, that only happened recently. So my motorhome actually stayed back at my buddy's house for, well, up until this year, actually. And long story short, he actually ended up breaking up with that girl, so, and then getting a new girlfriend. But by that time I was long gone, and I still paid my buddy the monthly rent, even though I was nowhere to be found. So he really didn't care, because I was still paying the rent, but just not there. So his new girlfriend really didn't mind that at all. But yeah, I paid him, and wasn't even there, and I had I had no real issue with that either, because the way I looked at it is that, you know, if he didn't allow me to keep my motorhome there, then I would actually have to just sell it or take it to the scrapyard. Who knows what would happen to it? So it's really thanks to him that that I was able to hold on to that. Anyways, so yeah, so I got the land, and that really was the spark that got me coming up here. And over the years, I learned the area really well. I learned the area like the back of my hand, and started to really become familiar with property in this area, property values and houses and stuff. And it really opened up this whole opened up this whole new world. And now, of course, now I fast forward, you know, 6 years later, I own multiple properties in this area, and a house. And I never thought in my entire life that I would have my own land, my own house, and yeah, multiple pieces of land, which, you know, I'll talk about all of them at some point. But anyways, that's how I got started up here. It really all started with an uncomfortable situation and a Kijiji ad. But I'll tell you, living in the city, you know, if you don't, yeah, living in the city is a big runaround. You're getting screwed. You're getting screwed hard, and especially for musicians, if you're like me and you don't have a big income, or at some points no income at all, living in the city, that's tough, man. And you're gonna be running on that rat wheel for a long time, and you may never get off that. So in hindsight, you know, well, I've had so much problems with money in my life. It's unreal. And that's the whole reason how I got started in RVs in the first place. But I really would like to make a video about that someday as well. That's a whole other topic, and I have a lot to say about that. But I think I'll end this video here, and that's just an explanation of how I came to own this property. It was just like really just like a, I don't know if it was luck or fate or what. But anyways, I'm gonna get going because we've got to make it back to the house before curfew, and I got to go to the grocery store. So been a pleasure hanging out with you, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you guys soon.